Hi, the crypto market is doing quite poorly recently. Almost everything is going down, but Helium with the HNT token can somewhat resist that trend. So when we look at the top coins over here, right, on CoinMarketCap, ordered by their size, when we scroll down over here, we basically see red everywhere, right? The few spots where we see green, these are simply just stable coins. So we go down and down and down this list. All of this is red. And the very first cryptocurrency that isn't red, at least recently, is Helium. Now, Helium is one of the top IoT, Internet of Things related cryptocurrencies. We are looking at market rank number 39 with a market cap of approximately 3 billion. And in this video, we're not going to look at the fundamentals too much. Instead, we are really interested in the technical analysis, in the relative performance to other cryptocurrencies. Of course, relative to Bitcoin and Ethereum, but also relative to other IoT competitors, such as IoTex and IOTA. So this is a long-term US dollar chart of Helium. And the issue with US dollar charts is always that you've got this high correlation, right? The effect we've just discussed over here, when Bitcoin and Ethereum is going down, then it's very likely that this has enough of an influence to also pull down the rest of the market. And so when we look at the US dollar chart, we simply just mainly see another version of what Bitcoin and Ethereum is doing. Here, look at this top over here in November of last year. This coincided with a top here in Ethereum. And that same top can be seen here in Bitcoin. When we look at the bottom over here in July 2021, we also have this in Ethereum, and we also have this in Helium, HNT. So what you really want to look at is not the US dollar chart, even though we want to make US dollar gains. But the question is always, what kind of cryptocurrency should you invest in, right? What's the best of those bets? Because I think there are basically two kinds of decisions you have to make. First of all, do you think the general crypto market is likely to go up? And if the answer to this is yes, then the second question is, which of the altcoins might perform the best in case we do see positive overall performance? And in order to answer the second question, we have to look at relative performance. And so here we've got Helium versus Bitcoin. And we can see that HNT tended to outperform Bitcoin, which is exactly what you want, right? You take on more risk by buying Helium. Thus, you want to get that additional risk compensated over the long term. And if you just take this upwards trend here as an approximation of how much Helium tends to outperform, let's take the middle point of that trend channel. We are looking at around 75%, 77% in a bit less than 1 year. So 300 days over here. So that's not bad. Of course, we had way more outperformance here at the beginning of last year, right? This massive, massive rally of 1,500%. But there's two reasons why I think it's hard to repeat this. First of all, Helium is way larger now than it used to be at the beginning of 2021. So going 10x isn't that easy anymore. The second reason is Bitcoin dominance, because at the beginning of last year, Bitcoin dominance was really, really high. And so a lot of capital was able to flow into the altcoins, creating this massive rally. So you went from more than 70% of all of crypto being Bitcoin to currently 42%. And so there isn't that much money to reshuffle again, thus making potential rallies probably not as quick anymore as they used to be, potentially, right? In the end, nobody can predict the future, but that's simply another factor to consider. The money that goes into future price appreciations are probably not going to come solely from a shift from Bitcoin to the alts. And that's likely the effect that drove this rally over here in Q1 of last year. Now let's also look at Helium versus Ethereum. Pretty much the same picture, a bit more volatile, but pretty much the same picture. Let's look at potential risk versus reward. So we are looking at a risk of maybe 25% or so, depending on how quickly we go down, and at a potential reward of maybe 32%. For Bitcoin, that looks a little bit worse because Bitcoin underperformed Ethereum. So this is a risk of more than 40% versus a potential reward of 32%. So it's always hard to say if these kind of trend channels, they stay intact or they don't. But if they do, it probably makes sense to somewhat wait with the entry right now, at least if you care about relative performance and if you don't look at the very long term, but if you try to ride those short-term waves to a certain degree. Now, IoTex and IOTA are other IoT-related cryptocurrencies, and this is the relative performance. IoTex went up quite a bit as well, and so we don't see that clear of an outperformance. There's pretty much random noise over here, a sideways trading range. Sometimes Helium is expensive, sometimes IOTEX is expensive. The potential outperformance here is more than 100%. The potential risk is not that high, right? It depends on where you see the potential support. It's not that easy to draw over here simply because the volatility is just so significant. HNT versus IOTA though looks way better. This is the chart. And let's look at this long-term outperformance. Here we are looking at approximately 1,750% in 1.5 years. So this is simply trying to find the middle points here in this trend channel, right? This is not exact science, but it gives a rough ballpark. If you ask me, IOTA looks like a riskier play to me than HNT. If you're considering to only hold one of those tokens in your portfolio, I'd sleep way better being in Helium than being in IOTA. Now we've discussed a lot around relative valuation here, right? The second question, as in what makes sense to own relatively speaking, assuming the overall crypto market will go up. Now it's really hard to get a proper prediction on this, right? Otherwise we would all be very rich. But we can do statistical analysis. We can do back testings. And when you look at other videos on this channel, I've done a back test that measures what kind of moving average works best when we want to enter the market whenever the price is above the moving average and exit whenever we are below the moving average. And you could come up with all kinds of moving average durations for such a strategy, right? You could trade, say, according to the 50-day moving average and be in the market whenever we are bullish and then exit whenever we are bearish, or you could take a shorter time frame. And so it's kind of arbitrary what kind of duration you should take here, right? But when you do the back test, when you actually try to find out what's the best length, specifically here for Bitcoin, you find the 23-day moving average works really, really well. By the way, the same moving average also works very well for Ethereum. And so just by following that kind of a strategy, one might argue that crypto could potentially continue to fall, right? Current momentum is bearish. The issue is always, with that strategy, you never pick the exact bottom. You might be bearish all the time, and then when momentum actually does turn around, you're losing out on a rally of like 11% or so. And this can be a pretty tough situation because Helium might move much more than 10% during this time, right? Helium might go up by like 20 or 30% because the altcoins, they tend to move more in both directions, up and down, compared to Bitcoin. So that's something to keep in mind. In general, things look rather bearish. So if you're risk averse, maybe wait with your Helium investment. If you're willing to buy several times though, right, then of course, in relative terms, when we simply zoom out, this doesn't look like extremely expensive. But of course, nobody can time the perfect bottom. So if you're taking on risk now, you should be able to continue buying on the way down in case this negative momentum continues. If you enjoyed this video, you're probably also going to enjoy the premium membership. We've got daily market updates, we've got exclusive content, and a private chat where you can ask me any questions. Simply go to thebitcoinstrategy.com. The monthly rate will increase on the 1st of February. So if you lock in the current rate, you will keep that forever. So keep that in mind. If you act fast, you get a cheaper price. Please also give this video a like because it will help the channel grow. And don't forget to subscribe. I publish videos regularly. Last but not least, there's also a public Telegram channel. Simply search for Bitcoin Strategy channel within the Telegram app. See you next time. Bye-bye.